All right, so this morning as we're going through the Docusign training, please interrupt me with any questions. You can stop me or unmute yourself, or you can ask in the chat box. Either way, just let me know. I want to make sure that you walk away from this having feeling much more comfortable and a lot more knowledge about how to use Docusign in your business. So I'm going to get started here in Command. You can see I'm at the Command home screen. I'm going to go to my opportunities, and I've already set up an opportunity for this morning's training. So I'm going to click on all opportunities because that's just, I prefer to click here because then I can see a list of all the opportunities that I have going on. And then for this morning's training, we're going to use this opportunity here, 1234 Main Street. I've already gone through and filled in most of this information, added the property address. Now it's important that I fill in most of this information because Docusign will pull in a fair share of information from Command, and it'll just kind of save you a little bit of time having to retype that information in when you get there. So from within the opportunity, I'm going to click on Documents. And then over on the left-hand side, there's a drop-down that says Pick Checklist Type. I'm going to select Residential. And today we are doing a listing as our example, but it's going to be the same process as if you were working with a buyer. The reason I'm choosing to do a listing as an example is because of the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, and lead-based paint disclosures. Those forms act very differently than all the other forms in Docusign. So it's easiest if I can go ahead and talk through those. That way you just have the heads up when you go to use those in your business. So now that we've selected residential, we have our different folders on the left-hand side with the different forms that we're going to need to upload for compliance review. And then over here in the top right-hand corner, it says Start a Transaction. It is very important that you click Start a Transaction from within Command. By clicking Start a Transaction, you are linking your Command opportunity to your Docusign room. And that's what's going to help pull in that information directly from Command. But it's also going to allow you to upload documents directly from Docusign into Command, which is one of the main benefits of using Docusign. It just kind of saves you a couple steps of having to download the document to your computer and then go in and manually upload it. If you start a room in Docusign directly without clicking Start a Transaction, you will not be able to retroactively connect that room to that opportunity. So you must always click Start a Transaction. Now, it's not going to be the end of the world if you start a room directly in Docusign, but you will just have to manually download and upload those documents. So I'm going to click on Start a Transaction. It's going to think for a second, and then it's going to open up a new window, and I'm going to log in using the email address and password that I created from within Command. Now, if you have pop-up blocker on, it will not pop up a new window. You should get a red little box here in the URL bar. If that's the case, always allow pop-ups from Command and Docusign. So I'm going to log in. Now it's taking me into my Docusign room. So up here in the top left-hand corner, you can see the name of my room is 1234 Main Street -Start Pots -Listing, and it pulls in the property address. This all comes directly from Command. So that way that I know that this room and the opportunity are connected. I do want to point out right here below the property address is an ID number. And this is more of a Docusign 2.0 feature, but in the event that you want to email yourself documents, you do have the ability to do that using the ID number up here. So that was a feature that we had in .loop, but I know some other e-signature platforms have the capability of accepting documents directly from your email, and this is how you would do it. Now, when you come into Command, or excuse me, when you come into Docusign from Command, it's going to take you directly here to your Documents tab. Do not start adding documents just yet. So today we kind of have two steps that we want to go through before we start adding documents to our room. The first is we're going to pretend as if this is our very first time in Docusign, and we need to confirm our NERDS ID number. This is what's going to give you access to the Georgia Association of Realtor forms that you will use to write your contracts. There are two ways that we can confirm our NERDS ID. We can do one right here in the Documents tab, and then I'll show you another in the Preference. Just in that way you have both options in the event that something ever happens to your NERDS ID. So since this is our very first time in Docusign, we need to confirm our NERDS ID. I'm going to click on the Add button up here in the top right-hand corner, select Docusign Forms. Now it's going to give me this pop-up window with a handful of logos, and I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. I know it kind of seems maybe counterintuitive since we are actually trying to get our Georgia Association of Realtor forms, but click on the NAR logo. Then it's going to ask for our NERDS ID, which I don't know mine, but I do. There's a link right here. It says find your NERDS ID. So I'll click on that. And that's going to take me to a little pop-up window where I can use my last name, email address, and or license number to look up my NERDS ID. So I'm going to use my last name and my license number. And then click submit. Now, one thing I do want to point out, if you have had a name change since you joined the Atlanta Realtor Association, use the name that you used to join, or you need to let the Atlanta Realtor Association know that you've had a name change so they can update their file. If the last names are different from when you joined to what you're using to look up your ID today, it won't connect. So I'm going to highlight this and copy. I'm going to close this window because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to paste my NERDS ID right here into this blank. Again, last name here needs to match the same last name that you use to join the Realtor Association. And then I'm going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors from this drop-down menu. And thankfully, it is now in alphabetical order. And I'm going to click Validate. It's now validated my one association membership. And now I have access to all the GAR forms. If this is truly your very first time confirming your NERDS ID number, you'll have a secondary pop-up window here of the Georgia Association of Realtors confirming and accepting terms and conditions. You'll just click accept, and then you'll have this window here, and this lets you know that you now have access to the GAR forms right down here. So I don't actually want to start adding forms, so I'm going to click cancel here. What I also want to do is show you the other way that you can confirm your NERDS ID. And this is just in the event that maybe something happens to your Docusign account, maybe something gets disconnected and you need to go back and reconfirm it. So I'm going to click up here in the top right-hand corner where I see my picture or your initials, select that, and then come to Preferences. And then in the left-hand menu on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Integrations. And then here you can see I have the National Association of Realtors. But if you don't have that here, click on Add Provider. And it's going to take you through those same steps that we just walked through a moment ago, which is you would select the National Association of Realtors logo and then confirm your, look up your NERDS ID, confirm that you're a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors, and then it will validate for you. Any questions so far on how to confirm your NERDS ID before we start actually making updates and changes to Docusign? All right.
Just a quick review would be good.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so when you come into Docusign, I'll just actually go back to my dashboard really quickly and then come back to my room that I just created. So when you first log into Docusign and you've created so you have your opportunity in Command, then you come into Docusign. You need to confirm your NERDS ID, and the easiest way to do that is to click on the Add button up here in the top right-hand corner and select Docusign Forms. Then it will have you go through some prompts where you'll confirm your NERDS ID number. You'll confirm your last name, and it's the same last name you used when you joined the Atlanta Realtor Association. And then you will select the Georgia Association of Realtors, and then that will confirm that you are a member of the National Association of Realtors and give you access to the copywritten GAR forms.
Thank you. Good.
So now that we are back in our room that we created, and I just kind of jumped back into the Documents tab as if we had just come directly from Command. So now that we have our NERDS ID set up and we're good to go, now we can start using Docusign to set up or to create our documents. Now, like I said, when we first got here, we don't want to go ahead and start adding documents. Let's go to the Details tab. And then we're going to fill in as much information that we have about this transaction that we have at this time. The reason we want to go to the Details tab first is because the information that we put here in the Details tab is going to auto-populate into the GAR forms that we use in just a few moments. So it just kind of helps streamline everything and makes it a little bit simpler. Now, like I said, we're only going to update the information that we have at this moment. We can always come back and edit, and we can always come back and add more. So the way that this page, the Details page is set up, is kind of like this left-hand side, kind of 3/4 of the page is going to be all about the actual property. So you can see here, room information, location, listing details, offer details, highest bid, closing details, all about the specific property and transaction. Then over here on the right-hand side, kind of in this quarter of the page, is going to be the information about the parties involved in the transaction. So you can see we have seller 1 here, seller 2, keep scrolling, listing agent 1, listing agent 2, and then we keep scrolling down, then we have buyer 1, buyer 2, buyer's agent 1, and buyer's agent 2. So I want to point out that the buyer's information you have to scroll pretty far down the page. So I just wanted to make sure point that out, so that way you don't think it's not there. To start making edits and changes to this page, we're going to click on the edit button up here in the top right-hand corner. And now it gives us the ability to edit any of these fields. So with everything, I recommend we just start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in the fields for the information that we have. So the room name, I'm going to leave this the same because I like that it matches and mirrors my opportunity name. Local currency, I'm just going to select US dollar. I don't have an MLS ID because this is a listing and I'm just now sending the documents over for signature. So I haven't actually added this into FMLS. I'm down here to location. It pulled in most of the information about the property. I'm going to select the rest of it. So this is a residential detached. This is built in year, let's do 1995. And there are no special circumstances. So listing date, we can go ahead and we can list this today, March 4th. Original listing amount, we're going to do $415. Copy that, paste that in here. Perfect. Scrolling down. Offer details. Now we haven't even listed it yet, so I don't have an offer. So I'm going to leave this blank. Same thing with high bid confirmation and closing details. We aren't even under contract, so I don't have a closing date. So I'm just going to leave all that blank. And all the rest of this information, property details down here, I don't need this. So I'm good to go with all of the property information. Now on the right-hand side, let's go through and double check and make sure that the information for our seller clients has been pulled over correctly. So you can see here, we have seller 1, Tony Stark, phone number and email address. This information came directly from Tony's contact card in Command. At a bare minimum in Docusign, you need to have your client's name and email address. The email address is required so you have a place to send the documents for signature. You don't need their phone number or their address here. If you have it and you want to put it in, you can, but it's not required. So we have seller 1, and then we have Pepper Potts and her email address down here, which is just my personal email. And then I'm going to scroll down. And then it's going to pull in my information here as the listing agent 1. So my name, most of my contact information, and good to go. If I were co-listing this with another agent, I could put his or her information in here, but I'm not, it's just me. And scrolling down, we have buyer 1. Now, if you are working with a buyer, you would leave all the seller and listing agent information blank, and then come down here and put your client's name in as buyer 1. Keep scrolling down here, buyer 2, buyer's agent. I want to point out that when you are working in Docusign, you may think the best option is to go ahead and add that co-op agent into Docusign and adding his or her name and email address here. So then you can send documents directly to that agent from Docusign. You can add in their contact information so it shows up on the forms. However, I do not recommend ever sending documents to a co-op agent for signature directly from Docusign. I'll talk through this again in a little bit later when we get to the envelopes, but just the way that the system is built is that every single party that is included on that envelope has to sign before a document is considered complete. The likelihood of you actually sending the document to a co-op agent and them signing is going to be slim to none, because more than likely you're going to have to be negotiating on that piece of information on that document. So just don't ever send anything for signature through Docusign to a co-op agent. So looks like everything is good to go here on the details page. So I'm going to click save in the bottom right-hand corner. And now my details tab has been updated. Any questions on updating the information on the details tab before we move on? All right, well, perfect. So now that we have our details all set up, let's go to the documents tab. And now we can actually start adding our GAR forms to our room so we can update them and send them for signature. To add documents to a room, we're going to click on add up here in the top right-hand corner, select Docusign Forms, and we'll get this pop-up window. On the bottom left-hand corner, we have libraries, and we have 3 different libraries: FMLS, Greater Alabama MLS, and GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors. This here, this GAR folder, is literally all 180 GAR forms that you have access and permission to use. That's a lot of forms. You can go through here and you can search for forms. So you can search, purchase and sale. Now, when you look up purchase and sale, you can see there are a lot of options here, and they all have very similar names. I would recommend that you start to learn the form numbers. So you can see here, this is assignment of purchase and sale agreement rights F279. You can look up the form number. So if I wanted to use the traditional purchase and sale for residential property, I can search F201, and that'll show me my purchase and sale agreement. Now, since there are so many GAR forms in this folder, I have set up groups up here in the top left-hand corner. We have a buyer's packet, and this is going to be a list of most of the most commonly used documents that you will need when working on a buyer side transaction. This list is not exhaustive, but I would say about 90–95% of the documents you will use will be found here. And this is just to make it a little bit easier for you to go through and find the forms. And again, you can search here, so you can search purchase and sale. And now we have 2 forms to select between, and just makes it a little bit easier. The same thing for sellers. I have a seller's packet here. And this is going to be about 90% of the documents that you will use when working with a seller. So now that we are here, let's add our form. So our first one we want to add is our exclusive. If I could spell correctly. We have our exclusive seller listing agreement, which we can see here is required. Then I also need my seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to select the F301. I'm going to select the community association disclosure. And then I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to add the purchase and sale agreement because, let's see if we have that in here. We don't. I want to go ahead and add the purchase and sale agreement because it's going to be probably one of your most heavily used documents. And I understand why a listing agent likely wouldn't be the main one to fill out a purchase and sale agreement. I do just want to help familiarize you with the document since you will be using it so often. So I'm going to come down here to Georgia Association of Realtors, search F201, and add that purchase and sale agreement. Here, you can see when I select the purchase and sale agreement, I get this extra window for a template. It's going to default to none. This is more of a Docusign 2.0 of creating form templates. If you have questions on that, let me know and we can set up some time after this. So I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it's going to add those 4 documents to my room. Now you'll see it's added them all to the Room Docs folder. The Room Docs folder is the default folder within your Docusign room. Anytime that you add a new blank GAR form, you upload a form from your computer, or you receive a signed completed document, it's going to default into the Room Docs folder. I know some agents like to organize their rooms in a certain way and have their documents in certain places. That is great, and I would also recommend that. If you want to create additional folders within your room, click on Actions up here in the top right-hand corner and select Add Folder. And then you can add as many folders as you want. So I'm going to make this listing agreement folder. I'm going to click Create. And now I have my listing agreement folder. So now, since I have all my documents in my Room Docs folder, I need to move the documents that are pertaining to my listing agreement into my listing agreement folder. There are 2 ways that you can move documents within a room. The first is you can select the checkbox in the top right-hand corner of the document. And then whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear right up here. And if you roll your mouse over the different icons, it'll tell you exactly what that icon is. And you can come here to the move icon, click on that, select destination, folder, and current room. And it's going to show both folders that I have access to. So I'll select listing agreement, click move. And now it's moved both those documents into my listing agreement folder. The other way to move a document from one folder to another is just roll your mouse over that document icon, hold your mouse down, and drag it into the desired folder. That's easy. It's that easy. So now we have our 4 documents that we are going to work with this morning. Any questions on adding documents before we jump in and start editing? All right. So we'll get started working with the exclusive seller listing agreement. That is going to be what we share with our sellers and get permission to actually list their home. So I'm going to click on it to open it. Let's give this a little bit of time to load. Sometimes Docusign is faster than others. So with everything, we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in the information that we have. So you can see here for 1A, it's already added in my property address, and that came directly from the Details tab. So I need to add in my tax parcel ID, and I can just get this from the tax records or from Realist. So I'm just going to put in my fake tax ID number here. Below here, we have our legal description. We have a couple different options, so select the option you want to use. The first is attached as an exhibit here too. So this is where you could reach out to one of our closing attorney partners at Campbell & Brannon, McMichael & Gray, or McManamy, and ask them for legal description for a property. They can send over the limited warranty deed, and you can attach that here. This is preferred. However, if you don't have this or you don't have time, you can always click on select same as described in deed book and page. And then you could go to the tax records and find out that deed book and page information. Either is fine. Scrolling down, we have our list price and listing period. So it automatically pulls in the list price from the Details tab. And we have 2 options here. We have our commencement of agreement. This agreement shall commence on this date, which means that there's an agreement between me and the sellers. So we'll have that start today. So I'm going to do 3/4/2022. Now, when you are putting dates in Docusign, always put them in the numerical format. Don't ever type out March 4. Just put 3-4 and then fill in the year right here. For whatever reason, the way that these fields are formatted, if you put in if you don't use the numerical format, it will sometimes cause an error and won't save any information that you've added to your document. So I'm going to have this ending agreement date. So I like to do 6 months. So I'm going to have this go through 9/4/2022. And then we have our marketing. Below is where we're going to market this. So we're going to market this on FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. Now, one thing I want to point out for today's training is that this training is not going to be on the type of information you fill in on these forms. That will come from either Lynn and Alita, our compliance brokers, or one of our attorney partners. I'm just going through and how to train you on how to use these forms and how to use Docusign. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to put a lot of abbreviations in here and put things in here that you may not want to use and may not be correct. So please always lean on Lynn, Alita, and our Alliance closing attorney partners for what specific information needs to go in here. This section here, 3B, marketing commencement date. So this is going to be the date that I actually start promoting this on the different multiple listing services. So let's do 3/7/2022. So that way it gives me the weekend to get my pictures, and then we can have everything up by Monday. And I'll be sure to have this marketed within 5 days of that 7th. So by that following Friday. Continuing to scroll down, we have our commission. So I have negotiated 6% commission with my seller, and I will share half of that. So 3% of the sales price with my co-op agent or brokerage. Protected period, I have negotiated 90 days. Section 6, the following types of agency relationships are not offered. So dual agency and sub-agency. And if the broker offers dual agency at one of its agency relationships, the seller does not consent to the broker acting in dual agency. Seller has the following special circumstances. Thankfully, there are no special circumstances for this transaction, pretty straightforward. Negotiation, the seller does authorize a broker to assist in negotiating. So scrolling down, now we get into the explanation of all the different sections. Let's keep on scrolling. Lots of information here. Scrolling, perfect. So now we get to section 10, which is brochures. So all those brochures have been added to one of the groups, seller brochures. And this is just additional information that you can share with your seller. So that way they are fully aware of what the process is going to be like and anything they need to be on the lookout for throughout this transaction. So the ABCs of agency, lead-based paint, mold, seller's guide to radon. If you select them here, please be sure to send them to your clients. They don't have to sign anything. It's just additional information. Then we have here our exhibits and addenda. So if we have an exhibit like our lead-based paint or legal description, so if we had received that legal description from our closing attorney friends, I can add that here, but I don't have any exhibits today. Special circumstances, special stipulations. So if you have any steps that you want to use on your listing agreement, you can type them in here. You can start typing in your stip here, add whatever you like. You can put as many that will fit in this box. Lots of stipulations. So here you can put in whatever stipulation you want. If for whatever reason you have a ton of stipulations and they cannot all fit in this box, you do have the ability to add the additional stipulations page, which is form F246. Just be sure to click that box so that way it lets the seller know that there's an additional page, as well as Lynn and Alita when they're reviewing your documents. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. Now we get to the signature page. All right, well, this is interesting. Okay, so for whatever reason, my seller's information did not pull in over here. That is very interesting. So the information for my seller's names and email addresses should automatically have pulled in over here. I don't know why they did it. So I'm just going to type it in here, Tony Stark And then we'll do kwfatech@gmail.com. And this is Pepper Potts. And this is just my personal email. And then come down here, and this should have also filled in First Atlanta, but you can see it's pretty easy. You just go through and you just type in anything and you'll get pretty quick at this. Also, a lot of this information is can be added to a form template. So that way you can just automatically have all of it add. So you don't have to type it in. Go. Perfect. So now I filled in all of my information here. Continuing to scroll down, just make sure there aren't any other fields. And I've gotten to the save and close button. When I'm done, I'm gonna click save and close. And that should save all of my information. All right. So now we've gone through and we filled out the exclusive seller listing agreement. Now our next documents to go through are the seller's property disclosure and the community association disclosure. So I'm going to click open to the seller's property disclosure. Give this a second to load. All right. We'll start at the top and we'll work our way down. So here we have an exhibit. This is not an exhibit to a contract yet, so we can just leave that blank. We do not have an offer date yet because again, this is weird. Are not under contract, but it's filled in the property address. And then scrolling down, we have all the information here. Now you'll notice I don't have any text boxes or check boxes for any of these fields. That is correct. As the listing agent, we do not have permission or the ability to fill in any of the information on any disclosure. All of those text fields are mapped to the seller because it is the seller that is required to fill in that information. We cannot be responsible for it. So as we go through this document, you'll see there's nothing for me to fill in or edit. I'm still just going to scroll through and double check just to make sure there aren't any fields that I'm overlooking. Perfect. Now we have our clients' names. Everything's good to go. So I'm going to click save and close. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the community association disclosure. I'm going to double check that, make sure all the information is correct. And we don't have a contract, so this isn't an exhibit yet. We don't have an offer, so we can leave that blank, and that address is all good to go. And again, just like the seller's property disclosure, all of this information is to be filled in and completed by the seller. So I don't have any text boxes or any check boxes to fill in any of this information. But again, let's just give it a double check. Make sure everything's good to go. And we are good. So I'm going to click save and close. All right, so now we've finished filling out the information for the listing. This would be the same process of you if you're working with a buyer and filling out the buyer brokerage agreement, same exact process. So even though it's a little bit different this morning, that's exactly what you'll do. Now, the next thing I want to walk through is the purchase and sale agreement. Now, I understand that as a listing agent in this example, we would not likely be the one to fill out the listing agreement, or excuse me, the purchase and sale agreement, but you will use it in your career. So I'm going to click on that to open it up. All right. And just like we did with all the other forms, let's go through and we'll start at the top and we'll work our way down, filling in the information. So offer date. So I'm going to select today's date. So we have the date of March 4th. I'm going to fill in the MLS number or tax parcel ID. I'm going to use the deed book and page. I'm just going to select option 3. Then we have our purchase price. We are going to submit an offer for $410,000. And we are going to ask for $2,500 in closing costs. The closing date for this transaction shall be, so let's, today is the 4th. Let's do April 4th. We'll take possession at closing. Closing attorney will do Campbell and Brannon, and then their phone number, which I don't know off the top of my head. Holder of earnest money will be Keller Williams, First Atlanta. Earnest money will be paid by check, and that'll be an amount of, let's do $4,500 within 3 days of binding. Excuse me. If you were at team meeting the other day in regards to earnest money, especially when working with a seller, Campbell and Brandon, Lee from Campbell and Brandon shared some great stipulations to add to any offers or agreements that you have to protect your sellers in cases where there are 0 days of due diligence. Our inspection, I'm going to negotiate 7 days of due diligence. Lead-based paint. This house was not built prior to 1978. Seller broker is Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. I'm just going to remove Realty because I don't need it in there. And then our buyer's broker, we can just say, is Harry Norman. And representing their buyer as a client. Material relationships, none that I know of. And we're going to give this till 12 p.m. on 3/5/22. And then we're just going to continue to scroll down, fill in, and double check any information on this form. All right, so now we get to the exhibits. So here we are going to include any of the exhibits that we want to attach. So we'll have the seller's property disclosure, the community association disclosure, and then our financing exhibit. So for today's example, we're going to do a conventional loan contingency. So I'm going to make my seller's property disclosure. I'm going to make it exhibit A. So have that, just type in A there. Community association is B, and then conventional loan is C. If you have any additional exhibits you want to use, you can just click on those and then give them an exhibit letter. Scrolling down, we have a very teeny tiny box for special stipulations. I don't know why the Georgia Association of Realtors thought it was okay to have such a small box, but for whatever reason, you can probably type in one stipulation here. If you have additional stipulations that you want to include, you will need to check the additional special stipulations checkbox here and add page F246 to the document. Another thing I would recommend when sharing an offer that has the additional stipulations page, maybe try to go ahead and add those together. So it's a single PDF. Also, maybe point out the special stipulations directly in your email correspondence with that co-op agent, just so that way they are aware of all the additional stipulations so they don't miss anything. All right, and scrolling down, we get to the signature page and we have our client's name and email address over here. Perfect. And then I have most of my information, so I'll just go through and fill in the missing information. I don't know why some of these fields are not adding today. It's very weird. But we'll just type them in. You can go through if you wanted to, and you can fill in the co-op agent's information here. That is something that I like to do when I'm putting together an offer. It just kind of is one less bit of work that co-op agent will have to do, and hopefully maybe enough to make my offer stand out amongst the probably 37 other offers that they have received. Another thing I want to point out really quickly on this purchase and sale agreement, it does have your client's email addresses. For me, I don't like to share my client's contact information with a co-op agent. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, that co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have with my client. However, I don't know this co-op agent likely, and I don't want to take that chance. So my first instinct would be to just delete it. However, anytime you delete or change any of the pre-populated information on any GAR form, it goes back and it will delete or edit that information on the details tab, which will then make that same edit or deletion on every other document in your room. So if I were to delete my client's email address, it would delete that email address off the details tab. Then when I go to send this document for signature, there will not be an email address to send these documents to. So I'm kind of dead in the water. I will show you when we get into the envelope section how to hide your client's email address. So that way you can protect their privacy. All right, so now that I have everything filled out here, I am just going to click Save and Close. Perfect. So now we have filled out all of our forms that we want to send this morning. Any questions on filling out any of the GAR forms that we just walked through before we put together an envelope to send these for signature? All right. Sorry, was that a question?
No, I was just about to say it's all good for now.
Perfect. All right. So our next step is going to be to send these documents for signature. The way that we do that in Docusign is through an envelope. The way that Michael New explained envelopes in Docusign to me, and I thought it was really helpful, so I like to use the same analogy, was he said, think of an envelope in Docusign like a manila envelope in real life. You'd gone through, you printed out all of your purchase and sale agreements and everything, you filled them in by hand. Now you've organized them and you put them in that manila envelope to hold on to until you see your client. It sits on the corner of your desk. And then when you see your client, you hand them that manila envelope and say, please review and sign these documents. The envelopes in Docusign is the same thing. It's just a place to organize and send those documents over to your clients. You will make multiple envelopes throughout a transaction. It's just the way that the system works. So there are 2 ways that you can create an envelope in Docusign. The first is when you're here in the Documents tab, you can select whichever documents you want to send for signature just by checking the little checkbox in the top left-hand corner of the document logo or icon. Whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear up here at the top, and you can roll your mouse over to the pen icon, which says Create Envelope. You can click on that. That will then create an envelope with those specific documents included. So that's option number 1. The second option is to go to the Envelopes tab up here. And then up in the top right-hand corner, select New. And now we're in the envelope editor. Now, had we selected those 3 documents and clicked Create Envelope, it would have taken us to this page right here. It would have looked the exact same, except our documents would be listed right here. So with everything, we'll start at the top and work our way down. So we'll start with the envelope name. Like I mentioned, you're going to send tons of envelopes throughout a transaction, 10, 20, 30, 40, depending on how long and how difficult a transaction may be. That's one way to put it. So when you give your envelope a name, give it something that you can recognize. This is for internal purposes only, so that way you can recognize it. But you just want to be able to go back and double check, because there will be times where someone's like, oh, when did I sign that? I don't remember signing that. When did you send it over? And that way you can go back to the envelope and get those details. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. Scrolling down, our next step is to add documents to the envelope. So we have 3 different options of how to add documents. The first is room docs. So this is going to be adding documents directly from our room that we've created. Templates. So any document that has been shared with us as a template from the office. And then more, we have the ability to upload a document from our computer or from one of these other sources. So let's get started by adding room docs. So the documents that we've gone through and updated in our room. So I'm going to click room docs. It's nice because I can go through by folder, and it will show me all the documents that I have in each folder, which is a new update. So it makes it a little bit more manageable to go through my documents. Or I can just go through here, the list of all the documents in my room. And I want to add all 4 documents. So I'm going to click Add Selected. Give those a second to load. All right. And now they load in alphabetical order, which is A-OK. The next thing I need to do is add my affiliated marketing and wire fraud disclosures. To add those, I'm going to click on Use a Template. And I'm going to select Shared with Me in this pop-up window. And this is going to be all the templates that the MCA office have put together for you to use. The reason they are under the template section is because there aren't any fields for you to fill in. It really is just going to be a document that we need to send for signature. So it's just much easier to have them here in the template section. And it also gives the office greater ability to make any edits and updates to those forms. So I'm going to scroll down. Here you can see you have a buyer-affiliated marketing and a buyer-wire fraud disclosure. Continuing down the list, I have a seller version of those same 2 disclosures. They are the exact same documents. The only difference is signing permissions. So since today we are working with sellers, I'm going to select the seller versions of both of those documents because I want to make sure that the signature fields are mapped to my seller 1 and seller 2. So I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it's going to add those 2 documents to my envelope. Perfect. So now that we have all 6 documents I want to send to my client, I want to put them in a specific order. The system is going to default to alphabetical order of when you added them to the document or to the envelope. But I want them to be in an order because we're going to get our listing agreement signed and then our purchase and sale agreement. So I want to make sure my exclusive seller listing agreement is the first document. So to do that, I'm going to roll my mouse over the document icon, click my mouse down and drag it into the desired position. So roll my mouse over, click my mouse, hold it down and drag it into the position I want it. I want my purchase and sale agreement to be the last document my client signed. So I'm just going to drag that into that 6th position and now have everything in the correct order that I want it to be in. If you want to change the order of the documents in an envelope, you have to do it here at this time. That when you go to create the envelope, you're not able to edit the order of the envelopes later on when we go into the envelope editor. So just make sure that you do that here. Also, for whatever reason, I don't know why, if you click Save and Close and then go back to make a change or edit in the Documents tab, and you come back to the envelope, it will put them in alphabetical order. I don't know why. So now that we have all of our documents in our envelope, let's scroll down, and now we'll add recipients to the envelope. This section is very important because 9 times out of 10, when someone has an issue with Docusign, it's from right here. So it's very easy to prevent and very easy to remedy. So we're going to add our recipients to the envelope. So I'm going to click on this drop-down menu, and we have 3 options here: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email address. Anytime pre-tagged roles is available as an option, 100% of the time, select pre-tagged roles. You always want to select pre-tagged roles when available. That is because all of the fields, all of the signature fields, all of the data entry fields on all of the GAR forms are mapped to those pre-tagged roles. So especially for the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure, where my sellers will be required to fill that in, if I do not select pre-tagged roles, I will have to manually add every single signature field, text field, checkbox, everything, which is going to take a long time and defeats the purpose of using an e-signature platform. So always select pre-tagged roles. In the event that you do not have the option to select pre-tagged roles, you can select room participants. But at that point, you will have to manually add those signature fields. So I'm going to select pre-tagged roles. I'm going to get a pop-up window here, and it's going to show all the roles that are included on all of the documents. So I'm going to select the roles that I have. So seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent, myself. And then in the drop-down menus over here, I'm going to select who that person is going to be assigned as seller 1. So I'm going to select Tony as seller 1, and then I'm going to select Pepper as seller 2, and then myself as listing agent. Now your name may be in this list more than once, and that's fine. Pick whichever one. It's going to go to the same place. Now, one thing I want to point out here when assigning who seller 1 and seller 2 is, whoever is assigned seller 1 is going to be the person responsible for filling in the information on the disclosures. So when you talk with your clients, say, hey, I'm going to send over the listing agreement with the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure. Who wants to be responsible for filling in that information? Whoever says, oh, I would, put them as seller 1. Otherwise, they will not have the access to do it. So you'll notice here, I have the ability to add in buyer 1 and buyer 2 and buyer's agent. Do not add in anybody on the co-op side here. We do not want to send these documents for signature to a co-op agent. So I'm just going to leave this blank. So I have my seller 1, seller 2, and myself as listing agent. I'm going to click add selected. Give this a second to load. Sometimes Docusign is faster than others. Just got to be patient. All right. So now that we've added our recipients to the envelope, there's a handful of pieces of information I'm going to walk through here before we move on. To the left of each one of the recipients of the envelope, there's these little boxes with the number 1. These little boxes designate the signing order of these documents. The system is going to default to everyone being assigned a signer 1, which means that everyone has the ability to sign at the same time. However, there are going to be instances when you're going to want to have someone sign a document first before it ever gets sent to someone else and before it gets sent to another person. So I want to put my signing order, I want to put my signers in a specific order. So I want Tony to sign first, since Tony is going to be the one that's responsible for filling in the disclosures. Then I want Pepper Potts to be second, because I want Pepper to have the ability to review the documents and review the information that Tony adds. Then I want myself to be the third and final signer, because I want to be able to review everything, and I have the ability to make the listing agreement binding when I sign, which will just kind of save a couple extra steps. So all you do is just type in or highlight the number and then type in the number that you want that signing order to be, and it will reload in that specific order. Now, I do want to point out that Pepper Potts will not receive any documents for review or signature until Tony is completely done. So if I send a note to Tony and Pepper and say, hey, the documents will be in your inbox shortly, Pepper's like, hey, I don't have anything yet. No worries, Pepper. That just means Tony's finishing up, and as soon as he's done signing, they will be in your inbox. Sometimes that can be a little confusing to people, but just let them know that they're in a specific signing order. Don't change any of the information here that auto-populated, because this comes from the Details tab. To the right of that, we have this drop-down menu that defaults to needs to sign. These are the different permissions that you can assign the recipients. it will always default to needs to sign, which means that there's going to be a signature field on there for them to sign. The next is needs to view. So if you need someone to actually review the document, but not necessarily sign it, you can include them as needs to view. I do want to point out that if they're set up as needs to view, they have to physically open up the document, go through it, and then close it for them to have considered viewed it. If they don't view it, the document will pause until they do. So it can be a hiccup. They also have the ability to receive a copy. So if you want to set someone up, like maybe a lender or a closing attorney, to receive a copy once everything is done, or if there's a third party to a transaction, maybe you're working with first-time home buyers and their parents are just really involved in the transaction and they want to see a copy of all the documents, you can include them to receive a copy, and that will just send them a PDF version. They don't have any responsibilities. They don't have to review. They don't have to sign. They'll just get a copy. The next is specify recipient and witness for signer. Likely you won't ever have to use these. If you do, let me know. So once you have the assigned permission, to the right of that, we have this more drop-down menu, and we have two options here. The first is add access authentication. If you are working with clients that are uncomfortable with e-signatures because they're afraid someone's going to rake into their email and start signing all these documents and buying a house on their behalf and they have no clue about it, you can add an access authentication code. So I can click add access authentication, and then I can type in whatever code I want. It doesn't matter. Now, what I would do is I'd say, hey, I'd give Tony a call and say, hey, Tony, write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you click into Docusign, it's going to ask for that code, and you have to put it in before to allow you to start reviewing and signing the documents. This is just an additional layer of security to prevent anyone else from going in and signing. I don't actually want to use that today, so I'm going to click discard. And then the other option is to add a private message. So if you want to write a message specifically to one person, so for Tony, I'm going to say, hi, Tony. Please be sure to review and fill in all the fields on the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure. Thank you, Nick. So I'm sending this little private message to Tony just as that last second reminder, even though we've talked about it 100 times. So he's aware of his responsibilities for the disclosures, that final little push there so he remembers to do it. Any questions so far on adding documents or adding recipients to the envelope? All right. Continuing to scroll down, our next step is to send a message to recipients. So the email subject is going to default to please DocuSign, which I would recommend just leave that in there. That way your clients are aware, okay, this is the DocuSign email that I need to pay attention to. And then I'm going to type in property address, Main Street, and then exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. That way my clients are fully aware. I've already told them, hey, these documents are going to be in your inbox in 5 minutes. Be on the lookout. And then I can add an email message. Hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and e-sign the documents, these documents. Thank you, Nick. Perfect. So now we have our envelope creator all set up and good to go. We've given it a name so we can come back and find the specific envelope if we need to. We've added all of our documents and we've put them in specific order. We've added our recipients and we've added pre-tagged roles, and I've added that private message for just Tony. We put the signers in a specific order. And we've also included a really brief message just so the clients know, all right, this is from Nick, it's good to go. Our next step is to click next up here in the top right-hand corner. And this is going to take us into the envelope editor where we can double check all of the forms, make sure all the signature fields are correct, and maybe add any missing information. So, all right, so there's a fair amount of information on this page. So let's kind of talk through the layout before we actually get into any of the content. So starting up in the very top left-hand corner, there's this little button, little arrow to go back. If for whatever reason you need to go back to the envelope creator, or you need to go back to a document to make a change, you can click go back here. The system saves the changes about every 2 or 3 seconds. So most of the edits you have made will be saved. However, if you add a text field or make any changes to a document and then go back into the Documents tab and edit the information there, it will clear out all of the edits that you've made here in the envelope editor. So just be aware of that. Below the Go Back button is, you can see it says Tony Stark, and there's a drop-down menu, and there's a yellow circle to the left of Tony's name. You can click on that drop-down, and you'll see it's going to have all the recipients for this envelope and a color assigned to each recipient. Now, since I have Tony selected here in the drop-down menu, you notice that all of these standard fields are highlighted yellow. That is so I can very quickly visually identify all of the fields assigned to Tony because they're going to be yellow. Now, if I want to assign something to Pepper, I can select Pepper's name. And now these fields are blue, so I can easily say, okay, perfect. Everything blue is for Pepper, and then everything purple is for myself as the listing agent. It just helps so you can briefly go through the documents. I do want to point out that the color is actually completely irrelevant and it has no value. So in one envelope, you may be yellow, and the next envelope, you may be purple. It doesn't matter. It's just that way you can see where all of the fields are. So I'm going to go back to Tony. So now all my field colors are yellow. Here in the middle, we have a preview of the document that we can scroll through. We can go through and double check all of the information. If you need to change the zoom in feature or size, you can. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have a menu of all the documents. So that way you can quickly go through thumbnails of the document. So you can see here, I can just go through, double check, and it will have these little Post-it notes right here in the top left-hand corner of the color that is coordinated with the specific signer. So this lets me know that there are signature fields on this page 10, and I can click on page 10 and it's going to show me, here's the signature field for Tony, Pepper, and myself. So that is a really quick way that I'm going to say, okay, perfect, I need to check this page. So everything looks good to go. Now for the listing agreement, I have the ability to make this document binding when I sign, because I'm going to be the third and final signer. And by doing this, I can come up here, click my name, click, and then I can add a text box. I'm going to format that to fit. And then now I have a text box. So you'll notice that this text box is filled in purple, and that means that it is a required field. If I uncheck required, now that field just becomes outlined in purple. The difference between a required field and a not required field is that when I go to sign, or whoever the field is required to of, the system will stop and make sure that field is complete and filled in before they're able to go on to the next required field. So I want to stop, excuse me, I want to stop here and make sure that I can fill in this information to make this binding. So I'm going to copy that text field, paste here, add that right there. And then I'm also going to add the date signed field right here, so that way it automatically adds the date for binding. So now, because these are all required fields, when I'm going through and signing, the system is going to stop me here to fill in this information. Scrolling down, we're going to get to the seller's property disclosure. Now, remember, when we were in the Documents tab, there were no text boxes or anything for me to fill out as a listing agent. However, here you can see all these text boxes and check and radio buttons are here, and they are outlined in yellow. By them being outlined, so I'm going to click on that text box, you'll notice that it's not a required field. That means that the system is not going to stop Tony and say, hey, Tony, you have to fill in this field before you're able to go on and sign anything else. Which is fine, because I don't want to tell him, hey, all these fields are required, because some of the fields he may leave blank because they're not relevant. However, if I leave all of these fields as not required, the system will jump from required fields, so signature field, signature field, signature field, and completely jump over the 8 pages of the seller's property disclosure. Well, I don't want that to happen. So I do know that this first field of what year was the main residential dwelling constructed, that is going to be a field that he has to fill in regardless. Like there's a year that this building was built. So I'm going to make this required. So now this text box is filled in yellow. So when Tony's going through and signing his papers, it's going to stop him here to fill in the year the main dwelling was constructed. Now it's going to be much easier for Tony to then scroll through and click the little buttons and fill in the information as needed for the rest of the seller's property disclosure. So it's just a little hack that I would recommend implementing in your business because most times when clients are like, hey, I couldn't fill in the seller's property disclosure, Docusign's not working. Well, you could fill it in, but you just were not aware that you had to and that you had to scroll back up. So no big deal. This just kind of helps stop them so they do know to fill in this information. So I'm going to scroll through, just double check everything, make sure everything's good to go. You can see all these text boxes and radio buttons outlined in yellow. Make sure we're not missing anything. And then we have our signature fields and our date sign field, so good to go there. Our next box is the community association disclosure. And this is going to be the same as the seller's property disclosure. All these boxes here are added and assigned to Tony, but none of them are required. So I am going to select the name of association field, and I'm going to make that required. So that way the system is going to stop him and he has to fill it in. And it's going to make it much easier for him to check all the rest of the boxes and fill in all the other fields. And let's go through, continue to double check. Signature fields, good to go. Now we have our wire fraud. So we have our client's information there. So good to go. And then we have our marketing disclosure. Good to go there. Now our last document is the purchase and sale. So we can just scroll through here, make sure everything looks good to go. All right, and we have our initial fields here at the bottom of the first page. Continuing to scroll through. Scrolling. We have all of our exhibits, check boxes, and our exhibit letters for special stipulation. And it's going down. We have our signature field. Now here is where I told you before that I wouldn't touch your client's email address. Now, in the event that you want to hide and protect your client's email address, which I would recommend, we can add a black bar over the email address. Now, it is not the most visually beautiful thing to see. However, it does its job of protecting my clients. So to do that, I'm going to come all the way over here to the far left. I'm going to click on this pencil icon for pre-fill tools. And then I'm going to select the line icon. And I'm going to scroll over here and just draw out a red line. And so then I'm going to click to end that red line. I'm going to come over here to my color. I'm going to select black. Done. And then thickness, I'm going to raise this all the way to a 10. And I'm just going to format that exactly where I want it to go. And now I have a black bar over my client's email address. Now, the co-op agent does not have the ability to reach out to my client directly. And what I can do here is I can hit Command C, Command C and Command V. Why is it not working? Oh, it used to just let you copy it, but I guess not anymore. That's no fun. All right, so I'll just have to create another one. So I'll just do the same thing for pepper. So I'll come over here, select line, drag that all the way across here, and then change this to 10 thickness. And there we go. Move that to right where I want it. Perfect. So now both of my clients' contact information is protected and we are good to go. Scroll down, just double check everything down here. Still good to go. Perfect. So our next step here is if we wanted to, we can give this a triple check and we can go into Recipient Preview. And this is going to show us a preview of what it's like for your clients to view and sign. So you can select who you want the preview to be set up as. So right now I'm viewing as Tony. Then up here in the top of the screen, we have a desktop view, a tablet view, and a mobile phone view. So if you're working with a client and let's say it's Saturday afternoon and you went and saw property and they're like, oh my God, we're obsessed with this home. We have to submit an offer. Go ahead and please write up an offer ASAP. And you're like, all right, cool, I'll get it over to you. It'd probably be like 5:30. And they're like, oh, well, we have dinner reservations at this restaurant we've been trying to go to for months. It's like, no worries, you go to dinner. I'll send you a text and let you know when the offer is in your inbox. You can pull it up on your phone and you can sign on your phone. They have the ability to do that and everything will work as it needs to. However, just know that the information is going to be really small and they're probably not going to be able to read it very well. So they are going to have that level of trust in you that you filled in all of this information correctly. Once you're done with the preview, you can click the X in the top right-hand corner. And then when you're ready to send this, click Send. All right. So now we have our first envelope. It is waiting on others, so it is actually waiting on me. So let me pull up the email here. So let me pull up my KWFA Tech one. So here we go. All right. So here we have this email from Docusign, from Nicholas Core via Docusign. Please Docusign 1234 Main Street. Scroll down, we have our private message to Tony. Please be sure to review and fill in all the fields on the disclosures. So Tony's going to click Review Documents. It's going to click Agree to use electronic records and signatures, continue, start, and it's going to jump straight to that first required field. He's going to click Sign. It's going to ask him to confirm his signature. He can just use the designed ones, or if he wants to draw his own, he can. I'm just going to adopt and sign the one from the system. Now, it jumped to the seller's property disclosure to this required field of when was the main dwelling constructed, and I think I said 2005. And now it is very easy for Tony to go through here and just very quickly answer the questions. And I'm not really paying attention. I'm just checking boxes because I want to show you what pops up when Pepper goes to sign. All right, so just for time's sake, I'm going to skip through these couple pages. Then we'll get to this page, and I'm just going to check out just a bunch of random things. Perfect. And now Tony will click Sign. And again, it's going to jump to the seller's community, the community association disclosure, and he's going to fill in the name of the name of association, name of HOA here. Mandatory community association. And now it's really easy for him to fill in information. Do monthly, and they are right. Now make sure your client fills in all this information because they are required, and any information that they forget to fill in will be a charge to your seller client. Perfect. So Tony can sign here. You can sign the wire fraud, affiliated marketing, purchase and sale. sign. And you can see his email address is protected there, so we're good to go. Now, once Tony is finished, he needs to click the finish button. Let's give this a second. It's going to ask if he wants to create an account. Just tell him no thanks. Now he's gotten the You've Finished signing page. It is very important that your client get this page. If they do not see the You've Finished signing page, that means that they have not completed the signing, and that means that the document will not go on to the next person to sign. So we're good to go here with Tony. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to pull up my personal email as Pepper Potts. And now Pepper will have an email that says, please Docusign. I'll scroll down. You'll see here's just a generic message to Tony and Pepper. She didn't get a private message because she's not filling out any of the disclosures. I'll click Review Documents. We're just going to go through the same steps that we did with Tony with Pepper. Agree, continue, start. And again, it just jumps to required fields. So she's going to sign, adopt and sign. Now it's going to jump all the way to the bottom of the seller's property disclosure, but because I am aware that Tony had to fill this in, I'm going to scroll up just so I can double check all the information. And so you can see that the information that Tony filled in appears when Pepper goes to sign. And that is beneficial in the event that Pepper wants to actually review the information to make sure that nothing was missed and everything is correct. Because if anything is incorrect on any of these disclosures, your clients are responsible for it. So you can see here, all the check boxes all appear, so we're good to go. Pepper will sign. And again, it does the same thing for the community association disclosure. So I'm just going to scroll back up so we can look at the information here. So what Tony has filled in. All these check boxes, no litigation. Click sign, 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 sign. And now Pepper is done. So now Pepper can click on the finish button. And she will also need to receive, she'll say no thanks. She will also need to receive the You've Finished signing page. So I'm going to exit out of that. And now I'm going to go to my KW email because now it's my turn to sign. So I've got an email that says, please Docusign. So now it is my turn to sign. So I'll click Review Documents. Continue. Start. So this is the listing agreement, so sign. And now I've gotten to where I can make this binding. So I'm going to make this, I can make this 12 p.m. So this document is going to be binding at 12 p.m. and it also added the date there automatically. Fill in, sign, and now finish. So I am all finished with signing. So I'm going to click finish. I'm going to wait for me to get the same You Finish signing. No thanks. So now I am good to go. Now, one thing I want to point out that I think is really awesome about Docusign, let's just give this a second here. Once everybody has completed signing that is a part of that envelope, you will receive a message from Docusign that says completed, please Docusign. And it will include PDF copies of all the documents that have just been completed signing. That is a benefit because under regulation, we are required to share copies of all the signed documents with our clients throughout the process. This just saves us that extra step of having to download, send them, and do all that because they have actual notice of the signed documents here. It also makes it really easy if you need to download to then forward to a co-op agent. So we are good to go there. So I'm going to go back into Docusign. I'm going to refresh the page of the envelope. So it's going to show me completed. I can click on the envelope and it's going to show me the times that everyone signed. All right, I'm good to go here. Now I'm going to go back to my Documents tab. And here is where all of the signed copies of my documents are going to be loaded. So here in the Room Docs folder, which is the default folder for the room, you can see all the documents with the green check mark icon, and those are my signed copies. Now I want to go through and I want to organize all of my listing agreement documents with my listing agreement docs. So I'm going to select all of my listing agreement docs. So I have all those. I'm going to click move. I'm going to select folder and current room and then listing agreement and move. Perfect. So now I still have everything all organized. Now this document here, the certification, this is just shows all the times that everyone signed in the event that you need to send this to a co-op agent or a closing attorney. It's here. You don't really need it done. So now we have all of our documents signed. Now we need to upload these into Command for compliance review. So to do that, I'm going to go back into Command. I'm going to come here to my listed folder. And then up here, it's going to say attach files from. It's going to default to Docusign, but we can select computer or Docusign. So if you wanted to upload something from your computer manually, you could select computer and then you can just drag and drop the folders there. But I'm going to select Docusign. And I'm going to select the listing agreement folder. So it just makes it a little bit easier. So here we have our listing agreement document, and it's going to show me all of the signed, completed versions of all the documents in that listing agreement folder. So it makes it very easy for me to find my exclusive seller listing agreement. All I do is select it, and the system automatically syncs and uploads it into Command. So I can click on this, and it's going to show me a preview of this document. Here's all the information. Scroll all the way to the bottom. There's all the signatures, our binding date, so we're good to go. We'll do the same thing for community association disclosure. Seller's property disclosure. And you'll notice as you select a document to upload, it is removed from this list, so I don't have the ability to upload it multiple times. So once it's been assigned to a document, I don't have to worry about it. So this is seller's property disclosure. Perfect. We'll do Rawls Group affiliated marketing. Select that. And I'll do the same thing for wire fraud, and wire fraud is the only document I have left. So now I've uploaded all of those. Once I have uploaded my documents, I am now ready to submit to compliance for review. So I would click the submit to MC button, and this would submit to Lynn and Alita all of the documents that I have for this transaction, and they can go through and review them. If they are good to go, they will have a status updated here as approved. If they are not approved, there will also be a message saying, you know, what I need to correct, like correct section 5B, or seller needs to sign line 10 of X section or whatever. Very explicit details on what it is that you need to do to get that document updated correctly. That is the training this morning. We've gone through from our room in Docusign, or excuse me, our room opportunity in Command. We've created our room in Docusign. We've confirmed our NERDS ID. We've added all of our documents, organized them, filled them out, sent them in an envelope, and now we've uploaded them into Command. What questions do you have for me? Anything I can clarify for you, show you again?
As of now, everything is clear. Thank you, Nick. I'm going to go through it and see if there are any questions. I'll probably get back to you for that.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to upload this to our KW First Atlanta official YouTube channel. So in the event you ever want to go back and reference it, and I have all my previous trainings on there as well. And please, as you're playing around in Docusign, don't hesitate to reach out. So you can either call me, text me, or if you want to, you can set up some one-on-one time in the Calendly link in my email signature, and we can go through this one-on-one as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, thank you guys for joining me this morning. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday, a great weekend, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.